Yeah, I know I told you that I wasn't going to make another New World video. Actually, the word that I used was probably wasn't going to. So this is me exercising the word definition of probably because I'm making another New World video and y'all can deal. If you don't want to watch the New World video, you know how to leave the New World video. If you want to stick around and watch the New World video and give it a thumbs down or end up writing a negative comment about how I supposedly didn't keep my promise, just understand that in reacting to and interacting with this video, you are feeding information into the YouTube algorithm, therefore having it recommended to more people, which means that I end up earning a better living as a result of it. So, if you don't expect me to be able to garner more success for my content creation career as a result of videos like this one, don't react to it at all and just leave. That's the best way that you can hurt me. Failing that, there is an exploit associated with Outpost Rush where people can summon a crap ton of mobs right away and basically win every single time that you end up using this one. But before I get into that, I have some things that I want to talk about and some responses that I want to give to people that have been leaving comments in my videos as of recent. I realize that New World is a game that has a very ravenous fan base at some level, and that videos like mine are viewed as things that are toxic, or videos like Josh Strife Hayes, who has made videos just like mine that have been talking about bugs for weeks now. But much like Josh Hayes, if you haven't watched one of his videos and you're here watching one of mine, thank you for coming by. And I hope that you do subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber already. Much like Josh Hayes, there are things that I want to respond to that are probably going to parrot an awful lot of what he has to say, because the negative comments that he gets are the same negative comments that I get. And the responses that he has given to those negative comments are the same responses that you're probably going to hear from me. The only difference being is that I don't have an English accent that makes me sound smarter than I am. So, as intelligent or lack thereof as I am, this is a video about an exploit in Outpost Rush and my responses to some comments. I promise you I will get to the summoning token exploit soon. Like I said, there are things that I think deserve to be discussed. See, there are people that think in the comments that the reason why I'm making content like this is that I must hate New World, and that could not be further from the truth. Also, much like Josh Hayes talking about client-side authority, I am also incredibly wrong in that. First, in terms of client-side authority, there is some handshaking that is going on between the client and the server. If there wasn't, then everything associated with client movement would be simulated, like jumping off of a cliff. But it's not, because the server is looking for certain levels of handshaking. However, a dev in a recent post did say that the servers were simulating everything that goes on inside of the game. So, I guess what they need to do is fix how these things are being simulated. Again, I just look at this as one of those things that should have already been there when the game got delivered, and this is going to be a recurring theme. See, when it comes to things like comments that say that I must hate New World, that could not be further from the truth. I made a video during the beta days where I played over 200 hours of that closed beta period, and then another 50 to 75 hours during the closed beta weekend that they had after they extended the release date for when the game was going to go live. And during both of those periods, I talked about how I was happy to see that certain bugs, like with the two-handed axe, ended up getting fixed. And I applauded the crafting system, the sound system in this game, which I still say is the best one I've ever heard in an MMO. I said it back then, and I'm saying it now. And I also love the graphics engine and the artistry that they put into this. I even went so far as to say that I understood that they were making the NPCs relatively simplistic, and it seemed like they were reusing a whole lot of mob mechanics. I could understand them doing that, because if the combat system was robust and it was something that seemed like it was more involved and more skill-based, and there were things like skill shots that had to land, I was okay with that as long as the netcode was there. Whenever you had decent ping, the game felt very, very fluid. I applauded New World for those mechanics, and I still do to some extent. Then there are people that say that the reason why I'm generating the content that I'm generating, if it is negative about New World, is because I'm saying that New World is bad, or I hate the devs. I don't know them. I don't know the devs. I don't know any of them. I've never had a conversation with a single one of them. I'm only looking at the aspects of the game, the fundamental flaws of the game that have been discussed in various different YouTube videos, across Reddit, across forums, and across my own testing, where the bug that I'm showing you in this video, for instance, wasn't anything that's ever been read on a forum, and there isn't a YouTube video for it. I found this one. We, my friends and I, found this one, and as far as I know, this has not been shared. So if you want to see this one's new, which brings me to the point as to why I make videos like this, or why I'm making this one. Amazon Game Studio is a profitable business, which means that they have to do things like cost analyses on things that cost money, like manpower toward bugs rather than game development. When it comes to bug fixes, they end up having to prioritize those based on how much damage that bug does. In cases of certain bugs, like that HTML window bug that Josh Hayes ended up putting out there, that bug has been around since the beta days of the game. People had been able to abuse that bug if they so chose. And Josh Hayes ended up shedding light on it. 300,000 views later, the bug got fixed inside of a day because it got to a critical mass point where a bug that was bad enough got to the forefront enough to where the devs had to do something about it. But the thing is that bugs like that never should have existed in the first place. See, I don't hate New World. I love New World. I want New World to be a successful game. I want games like New World to be successful. But comments that are written that talk about how the game's only been out a month. The devs are a relatively new dev studio. They've never done anything like this before. To me, that is a bunch of hogwash. Whether or not they're new devs, whether or not they're experienced devs, whether or not the game studio has been around for a long time, whether or not it's been around for a short time. The fact of the matter is I don't care if I hire a carpenter with 2 years of experience or I hire a carpenter with 25 years of experience. If they give me the same price and I end up going with one or the other, I expect the job that I hired them for to be done. And in the case of a $40 price point, if Amazon Game Studio comes to me and says, we're going to have Outpost Rush, we're going to have 50 on 50 wars, we're going to have this rich, robust PvE experience, there's going to be endgame dungeons, there's going to end up being legendary items that you can craft. And the crafting system, by the way, the fact that you can generate legendary items out of the crafting system and some of the absolute best items in the entire game come from crafting, I love that. I love that. But Amazon did not deliver on the promise. They haven't. If they had delivered on the promise, videos like this wouldn't be getting made. The level of bugs and faults and exploits and everything else that is going on in this game are things that you determine during beta testing phases. When they tested the beta tests for people during the closed beta period, there wasn't all that much Outpost Rush going on. There was like 2 days worth of Outpost Rush. Instead of having people internally testing or having content creators or whatever testing things like Outpost Rush, putting the game through its paces in an open beta period where everyone was level 60 and they could all experience it together. And that way they could feel what wars felt like when you had tons of 50 on 50 battles going on and people were able to exploit things like the Ice Gauntlet bugs and all this other stuff that were going on that didn't get found out or didn't get dealt with until after the game went live. It doesn't make sense. See, I look at it like this. I'm on the player's side. I am on the side of consumers and consumerism. If you purchase a product, regardless of what the price point is and regardless of what was promised to you, when those promises are made and they are delivered, it should be what was promised. If they don't deliver on the promises that they make, videos like this get created, and they should be. And people should be questioning why games like this get created. It should not be this status quo of where we cow to the idea that MMOs that are released or any other video game that gets released on launch day shouldn't be relatively perfect. Nothing is perfect, don't get me wrong, but I say relatively perfect. It should be close to flawless. It should be in operational order. Because when we put a game in pre-release and we pre-order video games, we put that $40 basically in escrow. It's not delivered to AGS yet. They can't have it. Once the game goes live, Amazon Game Studio got all of that money. And based on how Steam's rules work, 2 hours or 2 weeks, that's what we get. And then there's no more refunds. You can't even get to level 10 in 2 hours in New World. Not really. My point being is that you don't get to experience what New World is all about in 2 hours. You don't get to experience what New World is all about in 100 hours. And whether somebody says that they got their money's worth out of that $40 or not does not eliminate the fact that New World promised us a certain level of stuff to be able to do in a perfectly working order or near perfectly working order, and it did not deliver on them. As consumers, we should be telling devs like AGS that we deserve better from them. We should not settle for a product that is under-delivered. Now, of course, if you've gotten to this point, you've listened to me whine a little bit about this, and somebody is going to inevitably end up telling me that I'm just crying. And maybe I am being a little bit of a Karen, but I feel like we should be in this case, because all too often we end up accepting mediocrity out of game studios for things like this that should be working and have bodies of work that come before them that have shown how to get around and combat certain levels of these exploits that were not listened to and were not followed and have not been done. Even now, not done. Shouldn't have been released with the level of problems that exist in this game. It should not have been released. And it was. And they took our money and they did not deliver. So I'm sorry, but I will forever be on the side of the players for this. And this isn't even like a me versus you, me versus players, content creator versus gamer me versus the devs or any of that other stuff. This is literally just me as a consumer believing that a professional should deliver on what is promised when I spend my money. You guys would expect that of me if it were me, and I would expect that of you if it were you. If you are professionals that I am working with and I pay you for a job, I expect that job to be done to completion, just like in any other industry except, for some reason, video games. We deserve better from game studios. And if highlighting bugs like this, getting them widespread enough to where the game studio must do something about it in relatively short order, and it means that the bug gets fixed, and we have to wait an extra couple of weeks for a DLC to get released so far down the line for all of you guys that are, playing normal person hours and wouldn't need to be there for any discernible amount of time anyway, then what's the difference of a couple of extra weeks? Which is why I show bugs like this one. In Outpost Rush, whenever you end up farming Azoth from killing enemies, when you kill enemies, there's a little bag on the ground that gives you Azoth. When you take that Azoth to this altar over by this giant summoning portal, if you give it 500 Azoth, it will summon a brute token that ends up automatically in your inventory. If you and a few of your friends decide that you're going to split the Azoth cost and both or all of you end up feeding Azoth into this altar in order to get your summoning token to go and get the brute, you can do that. You can feed Azoth to this altar at the same time. So if you all farm up 150 or so Azoth and you all start feeding the Azoth to this altar simultaneously, the game doesn't differentiate between who gets the token and who doesn't. Instead, because you're all interacting with the altar at that point in time, it gives every single one of you a token. So if there's 4 of you, then all 4 of you get a token if you're all interacting with that altar at the same time as the Azoth hits 500. You can then take each one of your tokens to the associated summoning platforms across the map in front of all of these control points, and you can summon 3 or 4 brutes all at once. Now go forth and enjoy breaking the hell out of Outpost Rush, and hopefully they will fix it for real this time. And while they're at it, when they bring the servers down, perhaps they could dedicate some time to fixing all of the weapon bugs at the same time. Or not. This could be one of those things that is so low on the priority list that it doesn't matter to them, in which case, maybe we just need to be louder. At any rate, thank you guys so much for watching. For those of you that have been supporting me over the years, I very, very much do appreciate you. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you to those people on Patreon that have been supporting me. Thank you for being here. And I will indefinitely see you in the next video. I promise you that. Peace.